Okay, so the position time graph tells you lots of different information. Like it tells you which direction it moves, it tells you how fast it moves, and it tells you where it starts at. So for instance, the fact that right there is the y-intercept and down here is 0, that tells us that it starts somewhere to the right or in the positive direction from 0. So since 0 is down here on the motion map, I'm going to start the object over here, okay? And the slope is 0, that means the speed is 0. That means when you draw this, the speed here is, the speed is 0. And so when I put in all my points, it's just staying right here. It's not moving. I could have put it anywhere over here on the right side. So my written description is going to be something like starts, this is not writing very good, so I'm just going to have to narrate. Starts in front of 0 and doesn't move, something like that. So when you describe motion, you have to say where it starts at, you have to say which direction it moves, if it moves, and you have to say how fast it moves, and you have to also say how it's moving, like is it speeding up, slowing down, or is it constant speed? In this case, it's pretty easy. You just say it starts in front of 0 and it's not moving. All right, let's look at the next one. This one again is starting in front of 0, so somewhere over here, maybe I'll put a dot right here. And this one has a positive slope to it. That means it has a positive velocity, and that's a constant slope. That means a positive constant velocity. So I'm going to try to draw a nice horizontal line here that's positive. Hopefully it looks pretty constant. And then my motion map will have equally spaced dots because it's going at a constant velocity. And then I have to draw arrows. Now, I don't know how good I'm going to do at drawing arrows. And those arrows should all be the same length, and they're pointing to the right in the positive direction. You should label these velocities or these arrows with a V. It's really hard for me to draw that, so if I can do it, then you definitely can do it. And again, I can't really write very well with this, but I would have to say where it starts at. So starts in front of 0. Oh, this is going to take too long for me to write this. So I'm just going to have to narrate it again. It starts in front of 0, and it moves in the positive direction at a constant positive speed or positive velocity. Okay, go to the next one. This one is starting in front of 0 again. So I'm going to put my dot somewhere over here, maybe there. But this one's different because it has a negative slope. That means a negative velocity. So I'm going to go ahead and draw this like this. This is a nice constant line again. It should be nice and flat because the slope is constant. And then I would put my dots in like this. And you don't have to draw this many, but you need to draw at least 2 arrows. So I could have just stopped here, but I did more. Probably shouldn't have done as many as I did because if you look at this, it never gets a 0. So maybe I'll just stop right here. I really shouldn't have drawn that last dot, so pretend that one's not there. And again, make sure you label these velocity. And again, I'm not going to be able to write this, but I need to say where it starts at. So I'd say it starts in front of 0, and it has a constant negative velocity. All right, the next one. Oh, this one's different. Okay, the first thing I need to do here is draw a dotted line straight down. Hopefully it looks pretty vertical. I hope it does anyway. And for this one, I can see that it starts at 0, so it's going to be starting here. And if you look at this, this has a very steep slope, so that means it's very fast, but it's constant fast, and it's positive. So I'm going to give it a positive velocity here, constant positive velocity. And then the slope here is 0, so that means the velocity is 0. It's not moving. So I'm going to go ahead and go like this. So the velocity is 0. All right, so first I'm going to give the motion map. I'm going to say it's going real fast at first. Draw another one. Remember I said you have to have at least 2 arrows. So that's when it's moving really fast in the positive direction. Label those. And then it stops. It's not moving anymore. The speed's 0, so I'm going to put some dots here above it. So it just stops there. So I have to describe both of these phases of motion. So I would say starts at 0 and moves in a positive direction with a constant fast speed. Then for the second part, I would say then it stops. All right, so this one, I can see that it starts in front of 0. Remember, 0 is here. If you're like, oh, what are you talking about starting in front of 0? So it's starting in the positive, right? Up this direction is positive, so it's starting in front of 0. So somewhere over here, so maybe over here is where it's starting. And if you look at this first phase, again, I'm going to draw a vertical dashed line all the way down. It has a negative slope, and it's pretty steep compared to this one anyway. That means it's kind of fast in the negative direction. So maybe like this. That should be horizontal again. And this is also negative, but it's not as steep. So maybe it's like that. Again, that should be horizontal. All right, so it's moving in a negative direction at a fast speed. So I don't know, maybe something like that and like that. So fast. And label those with V's. And then it's going to move at a slow speed in the negative direction. So maybe I'll put a dot here and a dot here. These are shorter arrows. They're the same length as one another, but they're shorter than the first 2 arrows I drew. So those are... Now, again, you can draw more than that, but you have to draw at least 2. So I have to describe the motion. I have to talk about both parts of this motion. So I'd say it starts in front of 0, and it moves in the negative direction at a fast, constant speed. Then it moves in the negative direction at a slow, constant speed. So notice I have to say which direction it's moving. I said negative direction. And I have to describe how it's moving. So I had to say constant, because it's moving at constant speed. And I also had to describe the motion like compared to this one. So it's moving at a slow, constant speed, whereas this one was a negative direction at a fast, constant speed. All right, the next one. Again, I have to draw kind of a vertical dotted line here. Okay. So this one, again, is starting in front of 0. Not much in front of 0, though, so maybe I'll put it here. If you look at this, this has a positive slope. It's not very steep, though, so it's not very positive. So maybe something like this, really close to the 0. And then this is really steep. That means it's really fast, and it's positive, so I'm going to put a line maybe much further up here. All right, so now do the motion map. So at first it's moving in the positive direction, but it's really slow. So maybe I'll put a dot here and a dot here. Draw my velocity arrows. So that's when it's moving in the positive direction, but slow. And then it's moving in a positive direction, but really fast. So I don't know, maybe there, maybe there. And so kind of like that, maybe. Notice those 2 arrows are the same length compared to one another, but they're much longer than the first 2 arrows because it's much faster there. Okay, so I'd have to say where it starts. So I'll say it starts in front of 0. I have to say which direction it's moving. So it's moving in the positive direction. I have to say how it's moving, like speeding up, slowing down, constant speed. So I'd say constant speed, constant slow speed, because I have to compare it to this one. Then it moves in the positive direction, so I have to say direction, at a fast constant speed. So it's moving fast here compared to here, and it's at constant speed. So make sure you write down the written description. All right, so this one's going to have 3 stages of motion. So first thing I have to do is draw my dotted lines. So again, it's starting in front of 0. So I don't know, maybe over here somewhere. And if you look at this, this has a positive slope. That means the velocity is positive. It's not very steep though, so I think I'll put a line like right here maybe. Then if you look at this, this has 0 slope. That means the velocity is 0. So it's right here on the 0. If you're forgetting, remember up here is positive, here is 0, and here is negative down this way. So this is 0 right here. And then this is a very steep line and it's negative. So that means a fast speed in a negative direction. So maybe like that. All right, so it's moving first in the positive direction. So maybe I put a dot here, and then a dot here maybe. Then it stops for a little bit. So I put a dot, maybe another dot. And then it moves in the negative direction really fast. So maybe a dot here, maybe a dot here. Let me go ahead and put my velocity arrows in. Kind of running out of time, so I'm not going to label these velocity arrows. You should label them with V's. The reason why you're labeling them with V's, on Friday, I'm hoping on Friday, we'll do a lab and we'll start talking about acceleration. You probably heard that word before. And so we're going to start looking at acceleration, and we're also going to use arrows for acceleration. So we have to know which arrows are which. All right, describing motion, I'd say it starts in front of the 0, moves in the positive direction at a slow, constant speed. Then it stops for a little while. Then it moves in the negative direction at a fast, constant speed. That's what I'd write. All right, the last one. Again, draw a dotted line, straight down. Dotted line, straight down. So for this first part, I see that it starts in front of 0 again, so I'll put it way over here somewhere. And it has a fast negative speed, or negative velocity, I should say. So there's a fast, and it's big negative. Then the slope is 0, so that means the velocity is 0. And then it's not quite as fast, but it's still fast, but now it's in the positive direction. So maybe I'll put it up here somewhere. All right, so fast negative velocity. All right, so I'll put a dot there, dot there. Then it stops for a little while, so maybe a dot, another dot. And then it moves in the positive direction at a slightly slower positive velocity. So I don't know, maybe there, maybe there, maybe there or so. So there's my velocity arrows. Sorry about that, it should be straight. It's hard to do on here. These are my velocity arrows, but that one's not very good. Velocity arrow. I hope you're doing a better job than me. I'm not very good on the computer here. All right, describing the motion, I would say it starts in front of the 0. It moves in the negative direction at a fast, constant speed, stops for a little while. Then it moves in the positive direction at a slower, constant speed. So slightly slower. It's not as steep as over here. All right, so that's what you should have done on this worksheet. So correct your understanding, correct your worksheet so you have good notes.